Hey guys, it's the Island Girl and I'm back with another reaction video for you today. And today I'm reacting to the Victoria Cross for Valor. Hope I pronounced that properly. So it's a full documentary, but I'm going to do it in two parts, guys, as I'm having issues with my space. So I'm just going to be front up with it. So it's going to be part one, part two. So if you're new to my channel and it's your first time here, come on in, rock back, put a smile on your face and enjoy. To all my regulars, my schmegglers, my day ones, my sweetie pies, my sweetie poos, thank you for always being here and hanging out with your Island Girl. This one came in highly recommended. Here we go. And this is done by Jeremy Clarkson. So North One is where I got this from, guys. So here we go with all the yapping and dap danta. Here we go.
In September of 1944, the Allied armies were advancing fast towards Germany. But a huge obstacle stood in their way: the River Rhine. An audacious plan to capture 8 of the bridges across it in one fell swoop started well. But everything went disastrously wrong with the final quarry: the bridge at Arnhem. 12,000 airborne troops came by glider and parachute to fight for the bridge.
12,000?
It was the biggest airborne assault ever. But it didn't work. In fact, it would turn out to be one of the biggest disasters in the entire war. Of the 12,000 men who came here, only 3,900 got out again.
Wow.
However, the battle produced some of the most astonishing feats of bravery in British military history. One of the men fighting here was Major Robert Kane of the South Staffordshire Regiment. He arrived in the war zone by glider on September the 18th, just another ordinary man who'd given up his ordinary job to fight in the war. But 10 days after his glider landed in this very field, this ordinary man would have done something extraordinary. He would have won the world's highest award for valor, the Victoria Cross.
Oh. So it's the world's highest honor. Okay, all right, let's see what he did to win this.
It is almost impossible to win a VC. In the 150 years since it was created, the number of British and Commonwealth troops who've seen action is in the tens of millions. But only 1,351 of them have been awarded the Victoria Cross.
1,350?
The chances of surviving a VC action are just 1 in 10, but if you do survive, the medal can never be taken away from you. You can go to the gallows wearing it. And no matter how many letters you have after your name, VC always comes first.
Okay, now.
The VC, to my mind, has a place above all other national awards. It is the highest regarded award for gallantry. People have it in their minds that the Victoria Cross is something special, and anybody who's got the Victoria Cross must be somebody special. And they're right.
I could have centred this programme on any VC winner. All of them are remarkable. But the most special for me is this man, Robert Kane. This then is his story, but it's also the story of the medal that he won. In official speak, the military say the Victoria Cross is awarded only for gallantry of the highest order. But what does that mean? Well, let me give you a typical example. This is the story of Lieutenant Ferdinand West, an RAF pilot who won his VC in the First World War.
On August the 10th, 1918, West was flying his biplane far over the enemy lines when he was attacked by 7 German aircraft. At the start of the fight, one of his legs was blown off by an explosive bullet and fell into the controls. West lifted his leg clear of the controls and, although wounded in the other leg, manoeuvred his machine so that his rear gunner was able to get several good bursts into the enemy aircraft and drive them off. All 7 of them. Through sheer grit and determination, West then landed his plane safely and, although rapidly weakening and semi-conscious from the loss of blood, insisted on filing his report on the enemy troop positions before receiving medical attention. And the extraordinary thing is, the report...
Are you serious? Oh my word. Now that is what you call a selfless act. His leg is gone. Before even getting medical attention, you choose to do the report and not even concern you're weak from the... Wow. My mind was like, push, I can't believe that. Wow, sacrifice he made before even... And he did it knowing that his leg is gone. That's crazy.
And the extraordinary thing is, the report here filed by his rear gunner said that he didn't know that the pilot had been wounded until after they landed.
Wow.
West never thought to mention that his leg had been blown off.
Not even mention it, say gone.
The story of the VC began 150 years ago when Britain was in the thick of another empire-building dust-up, the Crimean War. There was huge bravery, but the system for rewarding this gallantry was a shambles. The medals that did exist were only for officers of a certain rank. There was nothing for the common man. Sometimes an ordinary soldier would be mentioned in dispatches, but that was no good because army commanders tended to list everyone who'd taken part. It was a bit like passing your chartered accountancy exams today. You get your name in the paper, but so does everyone else. The Crimean conflict, however, saw the advent of a new weapon to fight the cause of the foot soldier, the war correspondent. One of them was William Howard Russell from the Times. His stories from the front line meant that for the first time, people back home could read accounts about the immense bravery of the bloke next door. One of the people who read these reports was Captain Thomas Scoble, an MP, who proposed a motion in the Commons on December the 19th, 1854, that the Queen should create some kind of medal. An order of merit, he said, for distinguished and prominent personal gallantry, to which every grade and individual, from the highest to the lowest, may be admissible.
Unfortunately, the idea met with strong resistance from army commanders. They argued that the success of the British Army was based on the discipline of its formations, and they didn't want a medal that recognised individual acts of heroism in case it encouraged soldiers to break ranks and disappear off on their own. However, the top brass was about to be...
I could understand their reasoning why they say that, because at the end of the day, basically their reasoning back then was the fact that everybody had to work together. It's a common cause because they're all working together to make sure that everybody stays safe and working together to represent the country. Yeah, but then when you look at it, there were only medals for officers, so that was a great idea overall. So yeah. Okay, now I'm not interested.
Prince Albert saw the sense of Scoble's idea and told the War Office to come up with a plan. Not being terribly adventurous or enthusiastic, the civil servant suggested something traditional, an ancient order of some kind, perhaps.
Okay.
This is the document that they prepared. And as you can see from the notes and the squiggles put on it by Prince Albert, he was less than impressed. You can see here he's crossed out this bit where it refers to the order, because he didn't want it to be seen like joining a Masonic lodge.
Yeah.
Here in the margin, look, he's actually referred to it as a cross, granted for distinguished service, which will make it simple and intelligible.
Oh, wow.
That is very forward-thinking for the time. And here, he even suggests a name for it. The Victoria Cross.
Ah, that's where the name came from. Okay.
And he had a great sense of humour. I used to drink in the bar. He always bought the drinks.
Well, my strongest memory is that you hadn't got to be frightened of him. That you could go to him and speak to him of anything.
I would personally, if I'd been asked to follow anyone, I'd have followed Robert Kane. I had complete confidence in men.
The battle plan that brought Kane to Arnhem was called Operation Market Garden, and it was very simple. Allied forces would parachute into Holland and seize a line of strategic bridges. This would create a highway that would allow the Second Army to charge north, over the enemy defence lines, and down into Germany itself. The war, it was said, would be over in a matter of weeks. Now, the most difficult bridge to capture would be the one furthest north, in the Dutch city of Arnhem. But a small band of British paratroopers from the first wave of landings did manage to capture the north end of what's now known as the Bridge Too Far.
Major Kane arrived in this field 24 hours after the first landings. There'd been a problem with his glider back in England, but his job remained the same. He had to get his company of 22 men to the bridge as fast as possible to help out. Sounds simple, but it wasn't.
First of all, the whole point of airborne troops is surprise. You don't know they're coming until they're there. But because Kane arrived 24 hours after the first wave, the surprise was gone. And to make matters worse, the landing zone was some 8 miles from the bridge. So, thanks to some incompetent planning from the top brass in England, the Germans knew that Kane and his men were coming, they knew where he'd landed, they knew where he was going, and they had the wherewithal to do something about it.
Ooh, it's just nerve-wracking to just hear that. They knew he was coming, they can do something about it because there was no surprise into play. Jesus. My tummy is hurting and I don't know what's coming next, but I know this don't sound so good so far.
By sheer coincidence, the German army had parked 2 divisions just outside Arnhem. That meant tanks, artillery guns, half-tracks and 12,000 SS Panzer troops.
Oh, thousands.
Lined up against this wall of armour was the airborne British soldier who, by the nature of his job, travelled light. He only had a Sten gun or rifle, knives, grenades, only a few anti-tank weapons were brought because no one thought they'd be needed. The British troops simply didn't know about the strength of the German opposition as they started out on the 8-mile walk to the bridge.
Kane's men made it with no real problems at all to this very spot.
That right there tells me they're walking into something because they didn't know that they were there. The German army was there. And it's an 8-mile walk. They weren't prepared. Hey, let's see what happens.
It's just 2,000 yards from the bridge. They could actually see it over there, and they could almost certainly hear the small company of British soldiers fighting to hold on to the northern end. But they couldn't get there.
Why?
The Germans had had all the time in the world to get ready, and they were ready. Down there, on the other side of the river, they had artillery. On the other side, up there behind that modern building, there's a piece of high ground. They'd put mortars on that. Dead ahead were tanks and infantry. In desperation, some of the British tried to run down this bank, but there were more tanks and more infantry down there on the lower road. This was the perfect place for an ambush. The British had walked right into it, and they were slaughtered.
Man, can you imagine walking into an ambush? Walking into the unknown, not knowing what would happen to you, and you walk into that, and they just hearing the word slaughter just make my heart. It's like, wow.
Of the 400 South Staffs who fought here, only 100 would escape.
Ooh, 100
Kane
escape.
called it the regiment's Waterloo.
Regiment Waterloo.
Two of his close friends were among the casualties, and in his diary he wrote, "For the first time since childhood, tears sprang in my eyes. I turned away, swallowing hard, and with rage in my heart."
It must have been a savage kind of rage, because on his way back down this road for more ammunition, he ran into a party of 5 Germans. And even though he was alone, he opened up with his Bren gun and killed all of them.
Later on, the easygoing married father of 2 wrote of the killings, "I cannot describe the surge of dreadful, unholy joy which I felt."
Married, father of 2, fight off 5, and the joy he felt. His heart is aching for his friends, but at the same time he felt joy because he was still alive. Can you imagine that in the fight of his life, just him alone, and he didn't have much to use? Oy.
When he got back, the battle scenes were horrific. He wrote, "We passed Taffy Williams, a grand little Welshman and one of my originals. Only his head and face were untouched. The rest of him was unrecognisable." And so, with his company decimated, Kane was ordered to retreat. He'd bagged 5 Germans single-handed, but that made him a soldier, not a hero. There was still no hint that this man would win a Victoria Cross. This, the world's ultimate medal, was deliberately designed to be simple. In fact, when it was unveiled in 1857, the critics were horrified. The Times called it poor-looking and mean in the extreme. People were used to medals like chandeliers, as big and as glitzy as firework night. It was always assumed that the grander the medal, the brighter it should be.
You know what I love about it? Simple. It's a simple design, and I'm assuming that it worth. You can't even pay for it. How much it worth? Just that. So it's simple. Yeah, it's not outlandish and it's not ostentatious. Put it that way. But it's the meaning behind it. Yeah, let me put it that way. The meaning behind it.
This is the actual prototype of the VC, made to Prince Albert's specifications, a simple cross.
Wow.
Now, when Queen Victoria saw it, she loved it. In fact, if we look on a real one, which I've got here, we can see the only change she made is to the bar. She added some laurel leaves and a little V. And that's it.
Nice.
The highest award for gallantry.
That is something.
Strangely, the metal from which all VCs are made is not kept at the palace or under the Bank of England. It's to be found here,
Wow.
at an army supply base near Telford in Shropshire.
Okay. Why is it there? Is that, I mean, that is this a rare kind of metal? Why it kept at an army base?
It's in these sinister buildings that the army stores its rifles, its machine guns, its artillery pieces, its nuclear and chemical warfare suits. 250,000 items with a combined value of £1.4 billion, enough to win a small war.
That's a lot. But he said enough to win a small war. With all that, you're saying enough to win us, you mean win a lot of wars. But it's kept in a secured location. Oh, wow. That's amazing to know.
Bear in mind that what you're looking at here is just one aisle. And there are 8 aisles in every unit. And there are 4 units in every building. And there are 20 buildings.
Oh, wow.
The security is fearsome. But even so, the most precious thing they have here is kept in its own safe.
Wow.
A safe with its own alarm and its own all-seeing CCTV camera.
This is it. It's a lump of bronze from a Chinese-made cannon that was...
Can you imagine how important that metal is to make that metal in its own space with its own camera? With its own... Man, got to be important. Let's hear.
It's a lump of bronze from a Chinese-made cannon that was captured from the Russians at Sevastopol in the Crimean War.
Bronze?
And it's from this lump of metal that all Victoria Crosses are made.
Oh, wow. So there's no...
Hancocks have made the medal since the day it was created, and it's always given their craftsmen a bit of a headache.
It's made of very insignificant, valueless metal. The metal itself is, I suppose the right word is unstable. It's not nice metal, like pure copper or pure silver or pure gold or even pure bronze. It comes, as most people seem to know, from cannons which were captured. So it's already been used once, and the more often you use it, the less stable it becomes.
Oh. Wow.
Down in the vaults of this jeweller's you will find 7 VCs, the last of a batch that was cast over 30 years ago. They're all unengraved. They're all waiting for an owner.
That's a long... this have been carved and engraved 30 years. 30 years? And this was made... this video was made 3 years ago. So that's 33 years ago. And they're still... they don't have any... Wow, they are waiting to get its each... That means it's not an easy metal to get then. There's no way it's an easy metal to get. You got to be kidding me. Man, this is fascinating.
All VCs are going to look alike. But what makes them unique, of course, is the information on the back. The engraving of the man's name and regiment and the date. And until they are issued, they are literally valueless. 1942, 3, 4, that sort of time, Hancocks were charging £1.10, £1.50 in our modern language, to each of the services. And now, a VC which may have cost those sorts of sums in 1943 could well be worth on the market £150,000 to £200,000. It does actually become priceless once it's been issued because it can be identified for a particular man on a particular day in a particular action. And it's the history which is carried forward.
So before it's handed out, it's not worth anything. Look at that. Isn't that something? But once it's issued to that specific person, it is worth... Wow! Now that's what I'm talking about. The value. Can you imagine normally when you get something, the value of things normally depreciate? This. Alright, ghost pimples all over my body, guys. This is amazing to find out. Just just soaking this in. It's fascinating. Fascinating. Wow.
And it's the history which is carried forward.
Man. Look at it. Look at it. Simple, but it means so much. Golly.
Major Robert Kane's VC story was about to begin.
Oh.
Despite the losses suffered by Kane and the South Staffs in the German ambush earlier that day, the British still saw this as a setback rather than a defeat. And Kane's next task was to come here to a nearby hill called Den Brink. His orders were to seize the hill, hold it, and use the high ground to provide covering fire.
Okay.
Kane made it to the high ground, no problem at all, but he and his men couldn't dig protective trenches because, unsurprisingly, the whole area was crisscrossed with tree roots. Look, they're everywhere, and all they had were these pathetic little trenching tools. So, they were completely exposed when the tanks came.
It was another massacre. Tank shells and mortar fire rained down on Kane's men, who couldn't find any protection in the ground. For the second time in a day, he was forced to retreat, writing later, "It would have been a sheer waste of life to stay there. I felt extremely dejected. I knew our particular effort to get through to the bridge had been a failure."
Kane took 100 men to the top of that ridge, but when he came down, 90 minutes later, 40 of them were gone. Now, he says he was dejected, but eyewitnesses say he was anything but. They say he was bloody angry.
Robert Kane, the affable man who bought the drinks in the bar, had now become an angry warrior. So is anger the fuel which stokes the fire of a VC winner?
Many VCs are won in the heat of the moment, and undoubtedly the adrenaline gets going and inspires people, but their emotions will come up to the top, and anger is likely to be one of them because it will. They've been seeing their own people being killed.
Yep.
But I believe very firmly that a VC winner has complete focus on the job in hand. And he may have these emotions, but he's got them under control. Anger without being under control is a useless emotion to have.
Exactly.
But anger controlled and directed towards defeating the enemy is a most effective weapon.
This man is a classic example. In November 1965, Rambahadur Limbu, a Lance Corporal in the Gurkhas, was fighting in the Indonesian War. During one battle, he ran across 60 yards of open ground, completely exposed to a hail of murderous machine gun fire, so he could rescue a wounded soldier. It seemed to onlook as like a suicidal run the first time, but then he did it all over again to come back with a second soldier.
What?
And then again for a third time to retrieve their Bren gun, which he used to charge down and kill the enemy. He won his Victoria Cross in just 20 minutes and afterwards said that it was the anger of seeing his friends wounded that had driven him on.
Wow. Wow.
Limbu is a rare breed, one of only 15 VC winners who are still alive today.
They've all faced death in its most horrendous way, or most obvious way, and they've cheated death, and they don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Yep.
They're at peace with themselves.
If anyone can shed light onto the character of a VC winner, it's the secretary to the Victoria Cross and George Cross Association, Didi Graham. She's known more VC winners than anyone else.
Oh, wow.
The principal common quality amongst Victoria Cross holders I've known is an overriding humility and the huge inner strength which doesn't need to show off or throw their weight around in any way at all.
Commander Ian Fraser typifies this modesty.
I appreciate that. They're not boasty, they're humble. When they receive it, I can think that they're saying, what do I do to deserve this? I see my fellow man hurting, I try my best to help. I'm thinking that's where it's going to go if I hear it from one of them. But can you imagine that? Seeing the anger, I like the way they put it. Anger, filled with emotions, things can go so wrong, but if it's controlled and directed in the right way, something good can come out of that anger. Interesting, that's something to think about, guys. Can you imagine? Humility. Wow. Let's continue.
In 1945, he and his crew piloted a midget submarine through 80 miles of mined waters in their mission to blow up the Japanese cruiser Takao. In order to sink it, they had to place their explosives right under its keel, but the operation went wrong when the tide went out and the 13,000-ton cruiser settled onto the tiny submarine, pinning it to the sea bed.
Oh,
when
wow.
we got stuck and the tide was going out and the cruiser sat down on us, then I really got worried because I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get out because I was still determined to get out the other side. And we sort of went full ahead on the engine and full of on the motor, sorry, full ahead on the motor, full of and we dug a trench in the seabed by going backwards and forwards, and eventually we came out from underneath it.
Fraser and his crew did manage to blow up the cruiser and escape, and it's yet another amazing VC story. But he doesn't see it that way.
It always appeared to me that I was doing something that I'd been trained to do. I mean, I'd worked for months with this team of people that I had in the boat, 12 of them all together, only 4 in the boat at any one time. And we'd work for months on attacking ships, sticking limpet mines on things. Then you go and do it in an action, and they give you a VC for doing it. It all seemed, it always seems a bit odd to me.
I've never come across a Victoria Cross holder who said that they felt that they definitely did earn that award.
Wow.
Another common characteristic is that they all seem to show a sense of responsibility.
There's an interesting statistic with the VCs, which is that 75% of them were the responsible child of an early widowed mother or the responsible child in a large family. So it means that they spent the whole of their childhood looking after their siblings or their mother. So they're used to looking after other people and not thinking of themselves.
I was feeling probably more for my soldiers than anything else, you know. I was just there. I was a secondary thing to the whole thing, and I was upset that I was losing soldiers. And the enemy was shooting my wounded.
In 1969, during the Vietnam War, Warrant Officer Keith Payne was leading a company of trainee soldiers when they were attacked and routed by massively superior Viet Cong forces. Separated from his fellow officers...
Guys, this is crazy. This is crazy. I'm at part 1. Going to finish this, and I'll upload give you guys part 2. But this right here, man, these men who receive it, the humility, just to hear what they go through, my heart is just. Oh, jeez, I don't know. It's 11:10 p.m. here in Alaska, guys, and I'm finishing up this baby in my hand sleeping, and it's literally just turning night here, as you can see. So I was using my daylight to make my video, guys. So I hope you guys are not too mad about my darkness now, but as you can still see my face. I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, but you guys are family, you know, I don't hide nothing from you guys, all. But I'm just saying, guys, this is, I can only imagine what part 2 is like. Jeez, this is crazy. These men go through so much. But alright, guys, it's your island girl, and I'm running out of here. Part 2 coming soon. I love you guys. Don't let me know what are your thoughts on this so far in the comment section. You don't know, guys, I'm here for it. Put your request in the comment section, guys, because it will be done. It's your island girl, and I'm running out of here. I love you guys to the max, and I'll definitely catch you guys in another video. Bye.